Hi, it's Chip Collins with Collins Group Realty here in the Low Country to talk to you about real estate food poisoning. Okay, this is a phrase that I thought of years and years ago when I started understanding the psychology of negotiations in a contract of sale. Here's what it sort of looks like. If you've ever had food poisoning, or you've ever had a family member or known someone that's had food poisoning, let's say it was that chicken that was so delicious there at around 8 o'clock at night, really fun dinner, and then by midnight you were deeply upset because the chicken did not go well. It takes a lot to go back to the chicken, right? So it takes a lot to go back to that very dish at that very same location, etc. You're going to have an aversion to it. The same thing psychologically basically happens with home ownership and therefore with real estate. And so here's what I'm talking about. If you've ever had someone who had a water heater that burst up in their attic and it dripped through the second floor and then the first floor, they had to vacate the property, they had to have the insurance company come in, they had a loss, etc. That is no really different than having that bad chicken dish, and therefore you end up having an aversion to water heaters up in the attic. Or let's say you had someone that had experience with artificial stucco, which is a fine product if it's installed correctly, except if somebody found that it wasn't installed correctly and you had damage on the inside of your home, you had a window fall out of the wall, whatever it is, then you end up having an aversion to that product moving forward. It's sort of stigmatized in your own mind. Therefore, you have real estate food poisoning. It matters because a seller and or a buyer in the transaction might be bringing that experience to the table, and it may be part of their psychology in the deal, and you may have a hard time separating them from that. So let's say that you have a water heater in the attic as a seller and you come across a buyer who has real estate food poisoning about water heaters in the attic. Even though you've never had a problem with your water heater up in your attic, maybe it's a Marathon water heater that's fully encased, guaranteed never to leak, getting the buyer to come to an agreement that that's an okay thing, i.e. getting them to have a chicken dish again, can be challenging. So you may have to work around that situation. And same thing with the seller, by the way. You may have had a seller who basically had a buyer that walked away from a transaction the day before closing, and there was just a little bit of earnest money down. As a buyer, you might face that seller and understand that they want a more sizable earnest money deposit with their transaction. This is the give and take of a real estate transaction that sort of helps everybody get psychologically comfortable with how things are going to move forward. So dealing with real estate food poisoning is something we do every day, and it may come up in your next real estate transaction. We hope we have the opportunity to help you with it.